This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Lowe's knows how to help make your home holiday ready for less. Get Select Style Selections vinyl flooring for just $1.99 per square foot and have it installed before the festivities begin. Our team can help you every step of the way. See a Lowe's Red Vest associate or visit Lowes.com/holiday install to get started. Lowe's, we help, you save. Basic install only. Date restrictions apply. Subject to availability. Installed by independent contractors. See associate for details. Contiguous U.S. only.
You open the fridge, there's nothing there. So what's it gonna be? Greasy pizza? Sad drive-through burgers? Dish by Blue Apron is for nights like that. These are the pre-made meals of your dreams. At least 20 grams of protein, no artificial flavors or colors, no chopping, no cleanup, no guilt. Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Week 3 of the Six Nations has come and gone, and all of the narratives have changed. At the beginning of the tournament, we thought the Lions would be dominated by Irish and Scottish players almost exclusively. But is that starting to erode? This is Picking the Pride. Let's start the show.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind.
Joining me is the Rugby BC, Ben and Caolan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening, how you doing?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thrilled to be here as always. We're somehow only 3 weeks into the Six Nations. For some of us content creators, it feels like it's been going on for an awfully long time, but cracking on with the show. So this is where we discuss Lions chat. We talk about who over the course of the games has advanced their cause to be in a starting position for the Lions down in Australia. Who are the bolters? And we've got a juicy head-to-head coming at you in a bit. We're going to start off in the Don't Call It Twickenham Allianz Stadium. And Ben is going to talk...
HQ.
Yeah. Oh my God, I hate that. And we're going to start with Ben talking about, was he the official man of the match in the end?
Yeah.
Duhan van der Merwe, big Duhan on the wing. I think, let's be fair, a lot of people would have had him down as a contender to start before this game, but in this series we haven't spoken about him yet, and him being player of the match feels like a good excuse.
Agreed. Yeah, phenomenal performance from yesterday, although it was a losing cause. And I think it says a lot that he was awarded man of the match in a losing performance. Had a hand in all 3 tries. Third try, after a Stafford McDowell, fantastic breakthrough, and then obviously finished off out on the wing. Unfortunately, couldn't convert it and couldn't take the win away from Twickenham and make it 5 in a row, sadly. But he was a player yesterday who just carried and carried and carried, and he was defensively sound yesterday as well, which has always been the question mark about him under the high ball. And he just didn't put a foot wrong. And I think that axis with Kyle's low in as opposed to Darcy, because he felt a concussion after that awful collision with Finn Russell 2 weeks previously. I think that sort of back 3 worked really, really well yesterday. Their carry meters were, hundreds of meters between the 3 of them. But Van der Merwe, for his finish, I think just edged it for me out of the back 3. He's just so strong. And I know he always plays well against England, but it's just a fantastic performance yesterday. And unfortunately, not to win was just the sad part of it. But he's just a player just in a Scotland shirt who, he's up there. He's just a very, very good player at the moment, and really happy with his performance yesterday, and hopefully to see that continue for the rest of the tournament.
A few people having a bit of a go at him for not grounding it further under the posts, and just a general question of his switched onness in games. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had thought about this. I look back at it, and the thing is, it's 16-10 at that point. It's 2 minutes to go, or less than 2 minutes to go. All you're thinking about is probably just getting that ball down and giving someone who you trust, because Finn Ross is a fantastic kicker, of nailing that conversion. I don't think he had he maybe would be able to grab a couple of meters, and I can see you've got the arrow up on the screen there. He is one of those players who will go outside as opposed to inside. I think it's just a nature of his, whether he needs to work on that. in the next few games over the summer if he wants to be on that Lions tour, perhaps. But unfortunately, it has perhaps contributed towards Finn Russell missing that conversion. But at the same time, Finn Russell does make those, he's got 85% kick success rate. But yeah, I think it's one of those where in hindsight, you probably wish he had dived back in or at least tried to go past a player. But at the same time, you probably just think about getting the ball down just so that you have the points on the board and go back
We've spoken about it before, though, haven't we? Even for like Edinburgh, he always seems to take pleasure in running as close to the touchline as humanly possible when scoring his tries. There's some
yeah,
kind of showboating thing going on there.
it is somewhat frustrating. And I've seen some quite disparaging comments, and I'm loath to repeat them, but some have said that has he got a rugby brain? And I think some people are maybe suggesting that he does not have that rugby brain, but he still does things that very few rugby players can do on a pitch. It's just about getting him into that team spirit mindedness that maybe isn't always there. It's all about maybe an individual performance as opposed to a team performance. But it'd be quite unfair to pick out particular instances of where that's cost us. But yesterday, unfortunately, it seems to. I'd say it probably has. But at the same time, he is still racking up try after try after try against opposition across the world, Southern Hemisphere, autumn tests, every Six Nations. He's what's it, 33 and 45 caps now, 46 caps. I can't think off the top of my head exactly, but obviously our leading try scorer, a couple ahead of Darcy now, and there's maybe just some mental element of his game that needs to be developed, and whether that's something that needs to be focused on in the next couple of games, or whether Townsend needs to think about someone that just to take him aside and start to think about positioning and running a different line, because from that video you've shared, there was a line there that was narrower and would have been closer to the posts that he hasn't taken. So yeah, in hindsight, maybe that's something that we the Scottish setup need to think about.
Yeah. Caolan, what's your thoughts? So if we're still assuming that the Lions are going to be a broadly are going to be Ireland and friends at this point, and fitting into the Irish system, how do you think Duhan van der Merwe fits into that? And is he similar to James Lowe, or are they different enough? Can you have both of them in the same team? James Lowe, someone we've spoken about in a previous episode.
You can't for me, unfortunately. I think there's the kind of, the debate about like power wingers or left-footed wingers or whatever reminds me of like football, where it's like right back and left back aren't the same, and you don't know until you've actually played or tried to play both. You don't realize they're not the
Mm.
same. I think Duhan, as good and all as he is, I think they'll want another set of hands on the ball. I think, in a weird way, I think there's actually nearly a better chance of Kinghorn on that right wing than Duhan. I feel like Low starts with that kicking game. He is a more sturdy defender. I don't think that should be a controversial statement to say that James Lowe
It's
is
not.
a more sturdy defender. James Lowe, I know the irony of me saying after this week where Duhan comes up with that try. James Lowe is a man for big moments. It's not necessarily always the tries, but like the turnover, the aerial duel that you posted online, that he wins that, kicks the ball downfield, comes up with big hits. He's a big moments player, and he's someone that Andy Farrell loves. I think culturally he's a great fit for a Lions tour. Even if he's injured, he's that kind of guy that you just want to keep him around. I do feel for Scotland and for Duhan, the manner of that game and how it went. I didn't get to see a lot of it. I wasn't really around on Saturday, but just the manner of how it kind of slipped by. And especially with the kind of the spotlight being on that kick, and for Finn, who I've defended Finn a lot in recent years. I still think he is the best 10 in the Northern Hemisphere. I don't think he's the form 10 of this Six Nations, but I still think he's the better 10 available. Like, when I say Northern Hemisphere, I mean just in the prism of the Lions chat. Like forget the French guys for a minute, because at this rate, like, they could put Theo
I
Flamo
think
back to
I think
back to
I
Al.
think you could argue that he's better than the French tens as
Better
well.
than Entomac. Entomac, Jalabert, Ramos. Yeah, probably.
You guys know me. I'm a huge Jalabert fan. I think Jalabert is France's best 10. But anyway, we're not here to discuss that. So
But yeah,
yeah, so that's Duhan then. That's our first contender. I think it's a slightly obvious contender, but I do think to your point, Caolan, is if you assume James Lowe is starting, Does that hamper his chances? And I think that's the question. So if we come to your contender now, Caolan, so we're working our way steadily through this Irish team, right? So we've already spoken about who have we spoken about? We've spoken about Prendergast. We've spoken about
Porter, has come Porter come up yet?
Yeah, we've spoken about Porter. Spoken about Finley Beelum. Have we spoken about Dan Sheen? I think we have. Feels like we have. I have to check past episodes, but we've spoken about a lot, and we're going to be speaking about two more later in this episode who you might argue were more standout in this particular game. But even when you work through all those incredible players, you still end up with an incredible player with Ireland. And this week we are talking about the man Tadhg Beirne. So Scarlet's legend, um, reigning Pro 12 champion.
And then
Caolan,
John Barclay.
tell me something about him I don't already know.
I can tell you where to shove that comment. As a very heartbroken teenager in the Univa leaving that day. No, look, there's nothing to be said about Tadhg Beirne that hasn't already been said, and might pull in my mic there because I realize it might be a bit too far away. He is like what I said about James Lowe, like what I said about Bundy Aki before, man for the big moments, and I think fuck it, I'm tired. I can just say what I want. I probably get a little bit of slack for this before, insofar as I reckon Ireland's most clutch players, ironically, are lads who aren't necessarily from Leinster. Tadhg Beirne is one of them. Peter O'Mahony, maybe not so much now, but was historically a clutch player. Bundy Aki is another. And Tadhg Beirne went about his business, pretty tidy performance, then comes up with a late turnover. And it's like, yeah. It's like that's just what he does. And to use my colleague Patricia Vieira's comment, it's when Tadhg Beirne looks tired that he's at his most dangerous. If you think Tadhg Beirne looks like he's just out of a nice relaxing nap, he won't play that well. If you think he looks like he's after fighting Mike Tyson, on ultra hard mode, then you know you're in for a battle. But to kind of get away from the cliches and the comments, I think Tadhg Beirne is a starter for the Lions. I think there's a question, like we said before, about how you make up that pack and whether you go for a three-lock pack, whether you go for a little bit more heft. Do you put that heft in the second row through a McCarthy, maybe sacrifice the line out? If you sacrifice the line out, who's your line out option in the back row? They don't really have many of those, you know. I can't think of any specialist line out, like unless they start like Conan. I think Conan's a bolter. We might get into that another day. Was really, really good at the weekend. But I think Beirne is pretty much nailed on. Leadership, pass line, just a constant pain in the hole for any opposition team because he's just incessant in how he plays. He's world class, and I think ultimately, yeah, I love that one. That's the second time that that's actually happened. So for anyone on audio, we're watching a video of Tadhg Beirne, that late turnover. Where he picks the ball up, referee says no, he puts it back down and just kind of gets over it. That happened 2 years ago when Munster bred loose. The exact same thing happened. Wayne Barnes was referee. He was like, hands away. So he literally just reaches and hands the ball into the arms of Antoine Dupont that day.
Wasn't that in the middle? Wasn't that in the middle of a ball or something like that?
That
It was
was
a ball, wasn't it?
the same thing, bottom of a ruck, where
Okay.
Wayne Barnes judged him. He's like, you weren't on your feet, and literally he went over to him afterwards. He was like, that was funny. Like, do you know what I mean? And Christoph Ridley, I'm sure, but I haven't encountered Christoph Ridley a few times, but have done the exact same thing. He's the same school as Wayne Barnes in that regard. But again, Tadhg Beirne, like it for me, it's him plus one. For me, it's him plus a Tote. But again, the question I grapple with from there is I'm not sure if that's enough heft, especially when, as we talked about before, if Tyke Furlong's an injury doubt, then do you squeeze in an Ollie Chesham, someone like that, into the back row for that little bit more grunt against a big Australian pack? But Beirne was magnificent. I think I'm probably one of Tadhg Beirne's harshest critics, but that's just simply because he is consistently very, very good. You can't give a guy 9 out of 10 every week. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's really annoying that he's like 9 out of 10 every week, and you go through the stats like if you're like me and you
Yeah.
go, well, Tadhg Beirne was amazing again. Like, and when you say about being tired, I think in the first Pro 14 season, Tadhg Beirne played every minute of every game for the Scarlets. Like that when you talk, and he just Like I can think of one guy. I can't remember who it was against, but we won a game specifically because of him. Like he like in I think it was in like overtime. He won a turnover, and we had a shot to poles to win it. And that if we didn't have Tyburn, we would have lost. Um, so yeah, so on your point about the heft, Ireland struggled at scrum time in this game, and maybe a lot of that was in the front row, but it got better in the second half. Is that you would think that Tyburn and Joe McCarthy is not an unhefty team, an unhefty second row, but the substitutions seem to improve it. Maybe that was just Finley Bealham, but do you think the second row heft was a part of that?
I think to his credit, Finley Bealham played really well off the bench. And I've said before, I have been a critic of Finley Bealham. I think he's a fine player, he's a fine servant. I didn't think he had this late career resurgence in him after what we saw last season. I'll hold my hands up there, and I got that one wrong. Takes a lot for me to admit. But I think when McCarthy and Byrne, McCarthy's first game back after a concussion injury, he didn't really get up to the pace of the game at all, was kind of in and out of it. I could see that
Got
that
another head knock.
got another head knock, and I wish him the best with that. I really hope it's nothing too serious after the last one, so soon after the last one. But just on that, you have to trust the doctors and the systems because there's mouth guards there for a reason to try and pick up on ones that would have not been picked up before. But I'm not sure if that's Ireland's best second row pairing. And sometimes the best way to figure out how you feel about something is trying to explain it in the simplest terms. And the way I see it is, I don't think McCarthy, Byrne complement each other just yet. I think actually the power second row complements Tyke Byrne because he's not the biggest. He's not, you know what I mean. He's not a he's not an Emmanuel Miafu, just to use that example. But I don't think McCarthy's the right person just because he's so raw and he's a million miles an hour. But I still think McCarthy would do very, very well as the 30-minute guy for Ireland at the moment while he's still kind of learning. Because James Ryan's playing really good rugby at the moment. Didn't feature at the week, or sorry, come off the bench at the weekend. But for me, Byrne is my line starter. I can see McCarthy as a line starter, to be honest, because Andy Farrell loves him, and that seems to be all that matters at the moment here in Ireland. Um, but yeah, for me, it's Byrne and Itoje. For me, Ireland's power thing is a different conversation. I think Furlong's a massive part of that. I even think Doris is a part of that. Like, not the biggest number eight in the world, but he's still a factor. But yeah, I just have to. I just can't see unless Tyke Burns' form massively drops off. Can't see how he's not in the test 15.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other man then. So my contender for this week is the other half of that. What I think most people would agree with you is what everyone assumes will be the Lions' second row, which is Ty Burn and England captain Mauro Itoje. So Mauro Itoje is obviously vital for England. He's taken over as the captaincy, and the reason is that he can play 80 minutes, whereas Jamie George can't. And again, another clutch player comes up with big moments. And the thing that Itoje has added recently for me is previously there was a time when he had a bit of a reputation as a penalty machine, whereas now he's learned to be invisible. And I think that's so you can see Ben's face. It's quite funny. But it's an underrated skill. Not many players like get to that level where they know what they can get away with and they get away with murder. And when I say that Mauro Itoje gets away with murder, that's a compliment to him because he knows what he's doing. It's not luck. He's doing it with intent, and he's learned how to have that in his game. And if you're talking about like sometimes you see in games like a team scores a three and you say it's a good three to give away. Mauro Itoje is the master of that. He's a master of knowing when to give away the three rather than to concede the try. And like you said, I don't think in terms of what his value to England, not only is he the captain, not only is he the 80-minute man, he's the only specialist four lock in the squad. And like you said, if Tyburn is the obvious five lock, then Mauro Itoje is the obvious four lock. I mean, Ben, you're obviously not that happy about some of the things that happened on Saturday against Scotland, but even yourself in your salty state have got to admit that he's not got many contenders for that forward jersey for the Lions.
No, he hasn't, and he's been a fantastic servant for so long. I think, taking apart that particular incident over the ruck off feet yesterday, which I will ignore for the purpose of the Lions tour, is that yes, he has been absolutely fantastic for a very, very long time. He is the only four that I think fits into that equation, whether it's with Tyburn or with someone else. Um, he's a leader. He's strong. He's dominant. He's fit. He plays 80 minutes. He's commands a line out. He's got influence. He's a likable person as well. I think. He would hold a squad together. He's
I
the
think he
ideal
can do
touring
more,
kind of.
I think his potential as a kind of like a public figure is higher than what maybe he's being allowed to show at the moment. I think he could be a real global megastar.
Yeah, he's if he had the right PR team around him, then absolutely. I think there's a certain kind of swagger and suaveness with him that I think probably any more than any other England player at the moment. I think he's up there. I mean, I can see what you're showing right now on the screen.
Yeah, this is massively illegal.
But it just kind of shows that he's invisible at the breakdown, despite being the biggest unit in there. For some
Yeah.
reason, that was missed, and we move on. But yeah, absolutely, he goes, he starts, he plays every three tests if he's fit. It's as simple as that. And I think
Yeah.
he's a fantastic player. And
He's chasing down
any other nation would want him. Any other nation would have him in a heartbeat. And
Yeah, I agree. He's chasing down Alan Wynne-Jones's record as well of Lions tests. Like Alan Wynne-Jones 12 in a row. I think Itoje is already on 6. Yeah, Itoje's on 6. So I think 12 is possible. I think
how
12
old
is
is he now?
possible.
28.
I don't know. He made his debut in 2016.
He started young though, didn't he? I think did he get his first cap at the age of 19 or
He is
20?
30.
Okay,
Oh, it says on the
so
whole
yeah,
bloody page that I had open a second ago. Anyway, um, and Caolan, to your point of what Farrell likes, I can't envisage Andy Farrell not picking him. I think, I think surely
He's
Andy Farrell would love Maritoji if he had him.
he's everything that any coach would ever want. Like we said before we hit record, so I may as well share it. Or I said before we hit record, so I may as well share it. That if Maro Itoje did that against my team, I'd be absolutely livid. But as someone with absolutely no vested interest in that game, I loved it because it's just pure like I can do whatever I want. And you know what? That's what we should see more in rugby. I firmly believe that. More 7-1 bench splits, more illegal scrummaging, more completely off your feet, basically balancing off the ball that's on the ground. More of it once it doesn't affect me as and I can be a neutral. But I understand
I'm,
then that's not your viewpoint on
I'm
the
gonna push back very quickly on this. Not on your point, but someone said, and I don't know if this is firmly tongue in cheek or whether they were actually being genuine. They said that they heard Bruce yesterday saying, or Bruce, I might get the pronunciation of his name wrong, is that the reason he didn't ping it is that a Scotland player had been involved in tipping Itoje over the rock while he had the ball in his hands. I don't know if that's true or not because I didn't
What's
hear
a
that
load of
particular part of
rubbish.
it. But I would say I just put it out there, just want to get your opinion. But I thought the same, and I was a little bit less diplomatic in my language than you.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh
I know
well.
you.
You know what we know what some refs are like at the breakdown. Jouet, oh just jouet.
Yeah.
Right, let's get to our head-to-head of the week then. So this is the part of the show where we put two players who are contending for the same jersey up against each other. I think we've had an Ireland player in every time. We've had Bundyaki against Ollie Lawrence. We've had Hugo Keenan
Keenan. Yeah.
against Blair Kinghorn.
Kinghorn.
And this week
We're
we've
running
got
out of Irish people to talk
yeah.
about.
No,
This
we're not.
week
There's gonna be about 30 on that tour, mate.
It's going to be
We've got loads.
me. The last one is actually going to be me against Hugh to see who gets free tickets to Australia.
So this week is Scrum Half Battle, Jameson Gibson Park against Thomas Williams. Most people, at least in the UK, expect these to be the two. Alex Mitchell has won a lot of praise this Six Nations from all around the world, but it's Thomas Williams since he's moved to Gloucester is being spoken about as the best scrum half in the English Premiership. Who would have thought a URC player going to England and looking like a god? Never seen that before. But so here's the stats, and what I like doing stats drops for scrum halves because they're more interesting than stats drops for other players, and it tells you more about the team they played for. So I wouldn't read too much into the carry stats. So Gibson Park got 3 for 7 meters. Thomas Williams got 4 for 4 meters. Not particularly interesting. That's, if you're not DuPont, your carry stats as a scrum half don't really matter. No line breaks for either. Gibson Park played 60, a very nice 69 passes, and Thomas Williams got 75. Gibson Park got substituted on the 79th minute, I think, whereas
77 something. Yeah.
yeah, Thomas Williams played the full 80. And Wales had more possession in that game. Turnovers lost. Thomas Williams lost 2. Not sure about that stat. Need to check it. Kicks, Gibson Park got 13 to 11. But this is the really nerdy stuff. So box kicks. So Six Nations does smart ball reports. Don't know if you've seen these, Caolan.
Mhm.
These smart ball PDFs that they've done. So basically, there's a chip in the ball and it tells you everything that you want to know. So box kicks, remarkably similar. So the average distance on the box kicks between Gibson Park and Thomas Williams was 31 meters for Gibson Park, 30.5 for Thomas Williams. Call it the same. And it's actually quite interesting. I did a look at round 1 of the Six Nations, how similar like the top scrum halves are in terms of their box kick, in terms of hang time and distance. It was actually Ben White and Pedrello for France were actually for Italy were the outstanding ones. Ben White's hang time is quite short, and Pedrello's distance is also quite short. So that's quite interesting to me. And the hang time again, Gibson Park 3.4. Thomas Williams actually 4 seconds average hang time on his kicks, which is, you know, a lot
Can I
of
ask you a
people.
quick question about hang time?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen that stat before, and I find it quite fascinating. Like, what is the ideal hang? Obviously, I guess it depends on opposition, but what kind of is the best ideal hang time period that you're looking for? Because obviously, you put 4 is better than 3.7. Are we saying that that would always be better? That the longer it's in the air, the better that's going to be?
It depends on your kicking from now. I don't have smart ball presented by Sage statistics for every game I watch, but I often find it depends on how you're trying to kick at a team. So obviously for 9 it's a little bit different because it's literally most of your kicks are going to be box kicks, right? But if say let's just say you're playing against Leinster, right? You're going to want to kick really, really deep or really, really shallow. So it's going to be that little bit in the middle. It's not going to be a perfect representation. Whereas here and with Gibson Park, Ireland will often use him. He is their shallow kicker. With Gibson Park as their clearing, or with Prendergast as their clearing kicker. The only difference was for this game, it was very much a split load. This was the most. Gibson Park had how many kicks is it there? 13 kicks
13.
in the first 2 games combined.
Well, your microphone's gone weird.
Oh, apologies. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you
it's
just
better
way
now.
louder than you were.
Oh, sorry. So I think he had 10 in the first game and then 13 in the first, and or 10 in the first 2 games, 13 this game. I think in the final quarter, he really grabbed hold of
He
Ireland's
really
game,
did. I completely agree.
and I think that was a massive factor.
I
Can I just
think.
make another observation then?
Yeah, go
Sorry. So the interesting thing is, obviously, if you've got a hang time of a third of a second longer and the average box kick is half a meter less, I'm just thinking of how that looks on the pitch. Is that player, whether it's a wing or centre who's chasing that ball down, they're likely you're gonna have, the contest is going to be far more even, isn't it? Because that player is traveling for less distance and having more time to get there. That's still all I'm thinking about, is like what the permutation that is, whether it's always an advantage, whether it's and when it happens in the game as well, I suppose, like, and how the averages work out, I guess. But it's just an interesting observation. I never really looked at it like that. I never really kind of understood the kind of dynamics behind it. But I guess that smart technology kind of gives us that kind of additional data, which you kind of guess otherwise, don't you? But now you actually have it exact in front of you, and it's very interesting because obviously you can practice that if you know how long it's taking. You can practice it.
If you're a rugby coach, let us know in the comments. Do you like more hang time or less? I've assumed that more is better, but maybe it isn't. So let me know. Tackles made. I think it's fair to say that Jameson Gibson Park is a better defender than Thomas Williams. Thomas Williams not famous for his defence. Inserts to us over, throwing him across the pitch for no reason here. Yeah, and then try assist. Jameson Park got 1. Thomas Williams got 0. So, like I said, in terms of a head-to-head, I think everybody have we seen any evidence that Jameson Gibson Park isn't going to be the Lions starting number 9?
He starts.
Yeah, And I agree with
Yeah,
you,
the thing.
Caolan, but I think both him and Prendergast, like Wales couldn't live with Ireland's kicking game. On a second viewing, Ireland really did a job on Wales in terms of kick length and in the aerial battle as well. They're not Wales didn't win very many aerial duels.
A couple of Ireland's kicks were hasty in that middle third of the game. From now, I haven't watched the game back, so you can call me out if it's absolute rubbish. I felt a lot of Ireland's kicks were hasty in the middle third. Started strong, finished really strong, and even like I think like Lowe and Osborne only combined for about six kicks together between the two of them or something like that, something very, very low. But Ireland certainly seemed in this game, as I said, that final quarter, Gibson Park kind of put the game on his back a small bit, kind
Yeah.
of, I'm not going to say dragged Ireland over the line because I don't believe he did, but took a little bit more of that pressure because for Prendergast, who did play well, he was going through a period, especially around that hour mark, where it was good moment, bad moment. And I think it was around that Gibson Park just takes the load off of him, takes it on himself, and that's what good players do. And like, look, I'm not the biggest Jemison Gibson Park fan. I think he's a very, very good player. I think there's people who rate him higher than me. That's normal in sport. But I can see the value he has with a young 10 now more than I ever have. Because I think before you'd have thought young 10 and Gibson Park just wouldn't work. But he's starting to show his experience an awful lot more than ever before, and I gotta give him credit for it. And to be fair, I don't know about you. I was really impressed with Williams and Anscombe as a pair. Now, obviously, they've had loads of games together. I understand all that. Like, don't get me wrong. And anything's going to look better than what Wales had the first 2 weeks. But to Thomas Williams' credit, I think he is pushing Alex Mitchell for the number 21 shirt. And I think if I was to call it now, I'd have to go with Mitchell because again, how many Welsh players are going to get the 50-50 call if Wales end up with a wooden spoon? Ultimately, it's going to be very hard to see. But Alex Mitchell, like, what is he, second in missed tackle stats in the Six Nations this year? Do you know? So like, it's not ideal either.
Hmm. Go on, Ben. You're going to come in then.
Um, I don't get this about Alex Mitchell going. I think it's those two plus Ben White. I don't think Alex Mitchell's touring. I don't
Oh,
think
he
he's good
does.
enough. I don't,
Alex Mitchell for Northampton is a better player than like Thomas Williams at club level or Ben White at club level. And that will be a factor in the run in. Northampton are going to get to European quarter final and Premiership semi final. Well, maybe not Premiership actually, but you know.
Yeah, I don't get the
I
Alex
just
Mitchell hype either.
I just fear him coming on. Like if Gibson Park picks up an injury and he's the
But
second
Gibson
choice on the
Park
bench and
doesn't
it's a tight
come
match.
off. Do
I
you
know,
know?
but I'm saying, well, no, but there's reasons he could come off. He gets a nasty head knock or he gets injured. You know, you've got to legislate these things, right? And
That's true.
you need an adequate replacement. And Thomas Williams and Ben White are far better candidates than Alex Mitchell. I don't get like you say, Hugh. I do not get the hype around him. Every time I've seen him play, I've seen a very average, slow box kicking. Doesn't really kind of drive through. Doesn't really do anything interesting. He just plays the same kind of play
Hmm.
ball off every base of every time. And England have a dearth of scrum half talent. There isn't really anyone else out there
Oh
behind him,
my
which is
God.
why I
Don't get
think
me
he's quite
started.
complacent.
Um,
I'm not saying he's complacent, but it's easy to become complacent when you've not got that competition behind you. And I think, yeah, but like what the point I will agree with on Kevin is definitely about Gibbs and Park's maturity is that having that naive kind of less than 10 capped 10 on the back of him is that he has kind of taken that kind of maturity to the back line and holds it together. And I think if Prendergast is starting to struggle or things aren't really going his way when he's trying to pull a few different things off when the match is tight, then you've got someone on the inside of you just having that little word in your ear and just trying to calm things down and go back to basics. You know, take your time, let me take a bit of load off, let's play off nine for 5-10 minutes and see how it goes, and just being that sort of kind of
hmm.
coach on your inside. I think that's what he'll do, and I think he's by far and away the best scrum half of the four home countries by a mile. I don't think there's anyone that comes close to him at the moment.
I think Thomas Williams, to your point, Caelan, about the partnership with Gareth Anscombe. Yeah, I totally agree. But also, when Anscombe went off, I thought that Thomas really stepped up and took control when he had Jared Evans on, who's not a controlling 10 and was much more of an individual. Whereas Thomas Williams was like, okay, we're playing off me now, and was fizzing some really nice passes and keeping up the tempo, which is maybe why he started to flag towards the end of the game because he left it all out there. But
Did he come off? Or
he
did he
didn't
play?
play the full
Yeah, I
80.
was thinking, like, to be fair, and I think it's actually a testament to Thomas Williams that I didn't really notice Gareth Anscombe had come off. Granted, I was writing a match report. I should have noticed that the number 10 for one team had come off, but I actually just hadn't copped it. But I think that's on Thomas Williams too. I think he really did control things from a Welsh perspective, along with Anscombe. And I like myself and yourself did a preview pod of this game, and we talked about like the Welsh transition attack, the cohesiveness of the midfield, things like that. And I think all of those things came true. But as like it's very hard to say that Thomas Williams and Gareth Anscombe shouldn't be Wales's starting halfbacks at least for the next two games, possibly even further.
They absolutely should. I wouldn't change any of the 15 for the next game. Maybe I don't think the dual open side worked, but there's a chat for another day. So that's our head-to-head. I think it's not really a fair head-to-head. I think it's a kind of it was convenient for this game, but everyone thinks that Gibson Park is going to be. If I may give a spicy take, if you're asking me who I'd want, Jameson Gibson Park or Antoine Dupont, in minute 10, I want Antoine Dupont. In minute 70, I want Jameson Gibson Park.
You mean like despite the fact that Antoine Dupont played 100 and both players played like 100 minutes in the Heineken Cup final last year, and who came up with the big moments at the end? It was Dupont.
I'm talking about test level.
I know, but test level. Munster, Jesus, Freudian slip at the highest degree. Munster against Toulouse in that Heineken Cup final was essentially test rugby. Now, I am not going to try and besmirch these players because I am so looking forward to this essentially matchup to win the championship, unless the funniest possible scenario happens and France beat Ireland and Scotland beat France, which is still a possibility given their record against them. But as much as I like Gibson Park and I like Antoine Dupont, I still think I can't put anyone on Dupont's level. Apart from, because we do have South African listeners, Bafta Clark, who of course has won 2 World Cups, I should say, as we all know.
I think
remind us, guys.
Here in 2025, Antoine Dupont is not capable of playing 80 minutes as a scrum half, and James Gibson Park is at test level. So there you go. There's more reasoning.
That part I don't disagree with.
So moving on from the scrum half battle, then let's talk about our bolters. So good bolters this week. Excited to talk about these. Let's talk about the Irish one first. We're going to talk about Jamie Osborne. Now, everyone that I've spoken to on offline previous to this moment is sick of hearing me say this, but I've seen Jamie Osborne in person for the first time this weekend. I can't get over how huge he is. He's a fridge. he looks like he belongs in a garage. He looks like he should sleep in a garage, not in a bed. He's too big for a bed. He needs to sleep in a garage with other heavy machinery. Like I couldn't.
Okay, we get it.
I couldn't fathom it, Caolan. But on second watching of the game back between Wales and Ireland, he really stood out. I think he would have been very worthy of a Player of the Match award.
Yeah, I think further questions need to be asked about what size he is. No, I think Jamie Osborne, look, he's a fine talent. He's not much younger than me. I watched him at 20s level, and actually is one of the few players who came through at Leinster through the club system. I know you've spoken about this on your own channel, Hugh, and Squid Rugby has as well, about the Leinster model. Jamie Osborne, for me, is going to put pressure on Hugo Keane for the Ireland fullbacks, for the reasons you listed. He's a big man. He dominates the air. He's got a very good kicking game. I think his distribution is a bit of a, what's the term? Pandora's box situation. I know that's not Schrodinger's cat situation. No, I can't. Yeah, Schrodinger's cat situation, where I think it gets said that, oh, he's a brilliant distributor because he plays center. I actually think he's a pretty average distributor. He's actually just he's much better when he sticks the head down, runs through contact, he runs very, very good lines. We've seen it for the try he set up against La Rochelle in the Heineken Cup this year. And at times in this game, took his try well. I know it's such a...
It's an unbelievable try, this. This is a world-class try.
It's well, I mean, that ball is going in Rose Ed if James Lowe isn't 6'3", which he quite literally is.
Yes,
But
but James Higgins has kicked it knowing that he is 6'3".
yeah, but like so is
Mm.
fucking Tom Rogers. Anyways, it's good awareness from Jamie Osborne to be there as well. Don't get me wrong. And Ireland have scored a few of those tries in the past, so it would be remiss of me not to say that. Osborne's playing really well. He will put pressure on the Uva Keenan in the future, especially with the way the kicking laws are going, and they're suiting bigger men who can dominate the air while also having the ability to cover ground. I can see him in that 23 shirt for the game against France. I would struggle to have him in my Lions squad right now, but similar to other players who cover many positions in the backline we mentioned before, I wouldn't rule him out.
No, that has to help him. The fact he can cover
Oh yeah.
fullback and
Well, he
centre
can
and
cover
presumably
wing as
wing.
well. Like
Yeah.
he can basically play the entire backline. Like 14 maybe not because he's a big left boot and you probably wouldn't get the most out of him. And that missed pass, ultimately, I don't like saying it, but ultimately you have to stick that pass in a Six Nations game. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Ringrose should probably be a little bit narrower. He doesn't need to be hugging the touchline. Still, it has to stick. And I think he will learn from that, absolutely. He has just improved game on game. Every big game he's played for Leinster and for Ireland. But it will stand to him the fact that he can play multiple positions. There's not a huge amount of utility backs, like true utility backs at the moment. I think actually because he's literally on another tab I've opened here. I think Tommy Freeman's probably the closest competitor to Jamie Osborne in terms of someone that they might look at like if we need someone to slot in at centre in midweek or someone to just put in number 23 shirt for a midweek game, those two could be very similar in that particular question. Osborne's not in my squad, but he's playing very well. And if he does get the number 23 shirt against France, he is likely to be in the Leinster 23 that will go deep in Europe. So very much an opportunity there.
You a fan of him, Ben? Do you think that utility back status helps him?
Yeah, I think so. Just depends on whether he continues that form from yesterday. I mean, that's a fantastic try that scored yesterday. That's the first time I've seen it actually because I didn't get to watch too much of it yesterday. But yeah, and again, it's just the Irish connection. That being Irish at the moment just is going to help you significantly with the Lions tour. You know,
Well,
because
welcome back to the
obviously,
rest is politics as we talk about passports, apparently.
yeah. Well, Kieran, I'm going to call Kieran Brackett out for this. I don't know if anyone saw his tweet yesterday. He said, "Oh, Duan van der Merwe is suddenly Scottish." I was like, "Kieran, you're born in Dublin to Irish parents, and I told you weren't good enough, and then you went and played in England. That was your backstory. Like, it's kind of hypocritical of you to come out." So I don't know if he was banoric with that tweet. I don't think he was. I think it went straight over his head. But he's an Irishman that played for England, and I know he maybe came to England a little bit earlier than Duhan came to Scotland, but the point still stands. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I hate this argument at the moment. And it tends to be the English media just roll it out every time we play each other, and it's just boring and it's tiring, and it's just like let's move on. Like every country that plays, not all your players are born in the country because of that's just how it is. Like it's a good thing.
Hmm.
So there
Anyway,
we
so
are.
yeah, Jamie
The
Osborne's
rest of
good.
politics
Yeah.
is over. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Let's move on to the part of the show. Oh no, we're already doing bolters. Okay, let's move on to my bolter then. Now I could have picked any Welsh player as a bolter from the game against Ireland because that's how it felt. But I have gone for Blair Murray. Now I think the back three was standout. I've already picked Tom Rogers as a bolter in a previous episode. And we've already picked Jack Morgan as a contender. Trying to think if I've spoken about any other Welsh players. Have we just done Thomas Williams? But
Faletau got a
anyway,
mention, didn't he?
who did?
Faletau?
Oh yeah, I said Faletau was
Yeah.
better than Doris, didn't I? Oh well. So uh, so I'm going Blair Murray this week. So look, so kind of when Gatland first named Blair Murray as a fullback against South Africa in the autumn, everyone thought that was weird. And I'll be honest, a bit of me still thinks that it's weird. So the back three that Wales played against Ireland is the Scarlets back three, but in the wrong order. So Tom Rogers is playing fullback for the Scarlets and Blair Murray on the wing. And I think based on what I saw against Ireland, I do think that wing is still his best position. He gets the ball a lot more at fullback, which I think might be some of the reasoning behind it, in that when you get the ball in his hands, stuff happens. Now, in Wales, it's become such a cliche that if you get a small winger with gas and great feet, you just say, oh, he's like Shane Williams. But if you could get like a Shane Williams kind of role where he's allowed to rove a bit more, and then you've got Tom Rogers and Ellis Mee, who are obviously taller men, more switching in that fullback row. But these guys play with each other so much, I feel like they could interchange. But anyway, bringing it back to the Lions. Blair Murray, in my head, him being a Kiwi helps the fact that he's going to play Australia. Now, I don't necessarily have any science behind that, but in my head, it matters. Um, he's got speed, deceptive speed. He's got great footwork, and he's just got that Kiwi natural rugbyness about him, where he can see what to do and makes just generally good decisions. When I say I don't think he's a fullback, I think in the air he was found wanting a couple of times, and that might just be big man versus small man type thing. But as a winger, as someone who can cover the whole back three, he also said in an interview once that he can play 10. No one has seen him do this, but he says he can. So there. So if we're talking bolters, someone who is playing really well, I think had a fantastic game against Italy, despite the general team performance around him. And another great game. The try that he created for Tom Rogers, if I can bring it up, he's got no right to create this try. He gets on the outside of Prendergast. And it wasn't a Prendergast missed tackle. He just does him for pace. And generally just a fantastic bit of play. So just see if I can pull this try up. But I don't know what you guys think. Like he's a player that everyone would have said, I've never heard of him 6 months ago. But you got to admit he's playing well, surely.
To be fair, that's too now there might be Welsh fans who think we're too Scarlets biased on this show. But that's two Scarlets players who decided to really show up. Blair Murray and Ellis Mee on debut. I thought both of them were really, really good. And look, I was more critical than others about Ireland. Nice Tom Rogers 1917 reference down there. But like, look at that for a finish. I just felt like with that back three, that I would struggle to say any of them didn't play as well as their opposite man, despite the fact Osborne and Lowe in particular, I thought were really, really good. Thought that Welsh back three were brilliant. I really do. I thought they were absolutely brilliant in this game. And Murray, Rogers, and Mee, I'm not going to separate them because I didn't have as much of a focus on Wales or know as much about them as yourself, Hugh, obviously. But I was really, really happy with how they played as a tandem. I thought there was probably a little bit of waffling on my behalf when I just assumed they'd be there for their transition threat and their height. But no, they were really, really good. And if not for a millimeter, that game takes a massive turn at the end with Ellis Mee. And we're talking about a very, very different result. So credit to them. Credit to Matt Sherratt. I don't think this was new manager bounce. I firmly don't, because we've seen more attacking structure, more ability to target opposition weaknesses, more consistency in kicking game, more of an impetus at set piece than we had seen under Gatland. That's not a new manager. Like that is Matt Sherratt went in and said, we're going to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They implemented that. And he deserves credit. Gatland has been a legend, but like, and we'll move on from now. Credit to Sherratt, credit to a lot of those Welsh players, as I said, and to that back three of Mee, Rogers, and Murray. They were all excellent, and it just shows that players who we may not have recognised in the United Rugby Championship can still be world class internationals, because the United Rugby Championship is just that stacked. And as you would see on weekends like these, while we're all arguing about Wales against Ireland, you've got the Bulls taking on the Lions as well. So, we also have that going on.
Yeah. Good to see the Bulls picking up a win. Blair Murray was playing NPC rugby this time last year. Has now started back-to-back Six Nations games. Unbelievable rise. I mean, Ben,
it's a meteoric rise.
Ben, in terms of the, I kind of want to call it the Darcy Graham spots, the nippy back three player. It just is such a stacked area of the squad. It's difficult to see outsiders breaking in at the moment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think Blair Murray it's a distant bolter, I think, at this moment in time. I think the technique for that try yesterday is fantastic. He's looked to pass that 4 or 5 yards and then pass it, out of contact is fantastic. That's made that try. Not Tom Rogers, it's a fantastic finish, but there's just a plethora of wingers that are available. Whether you go for the James Lowe build, the Doohan kind of power and guile, or you go for the nippy winger who can dance around 6-7 players and dub down. there's a lot of people that are available. Blake Kinghorn can obviously play there too, so you've got that utility kind of back. They can play 15 or 14, so it'd be interesting to see what Farrell prefers. Because James Lowe will be one of those wingers. It just depends on what you want on the other side, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your bolter then. From Scotland, I thought he would, from the little that I saw against England, he was dominant at the breakdown at times. In another stacked area of player talent, one of the older guys off to, is it Perpignan next year? Jamie Ritchie.
Yeah, yeah. I went for Jamie Ritchie. I think he's blown hot and cold for Scotland. Obviously, he was captain. The captaincy was taken away from him by Townsend because I think there was issues with his communication style. But since he's come back into the fold, and particularly yesterday, he was just dominant at the breakdown. I think there was 3 turnovers that he won, but he is just, his timing is impeccable. He's so calm and composed, and I just think for someone on the blind side, he could be an option because I think he has that ability to momentum swings happen because of him. You see it at Edinburgh, you've seen it at Scotland for years now. He has the timing to get in. I've got a feeling, I correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone else in the comments off this. I've got a feeling he doesn't give away many penalties at the breakdown. I feel like his timing is that good. He will, he'll go in when the time's right, and he will, step off if it's not there. But I feel like he's just again one of those people that's got influence and he can dominate a breakdown. And his tackling was brilliant yesterday as well. He carries. He's just a leader in the pack, I think. And again, although we lost yesterday, he was utterly dominant, and I think kind of powered over that England pack on numerous occasions yesterday.
Absolutely,
I'd like to see him go. I think he's got a chance. I think if he continues in this vein of form, he's got a chance. But
where does he fit into the squad though? And what's his role? Because like we're talking about bolters, obviously, so we're not talking about a test starter here, but it's just for me, it's just difficult to see where whose spot he takes.
I think so, but you've got to go on form, and if he continues that form, then he has to be in the conversation come late April, early May. I think if we play like that against Wales and he dominates again, especially against France on the last weekend away in Paris, it's going to be a difficult game. So I'd like to think he's got that 6 shirt for the rest of the series, rest of the Six Nations. But you're right. I think it's maybe just me, just misty-eyed, and I just love Jamie Ritchie so much. Like I just think he's a fantastic player. He's been a servant. He's been, a captain. He's been a leader at Edinburgh. He's just had that kind of his technique at the breakdown is fantastic. I feel that from a Scottish perspective, there's not many players in the back row that are as good as he is at the breakdown, and I think he just demonstrates it time and time and time again. Whether it's Edinburgh or Scotland, and I think he might come up in dispatches, whether he goes or not. Maybe he doesn't, but yeah, I think it's just me wanting someone like him there. I think a midweek kind of like back. I think he's got the possibility of doing that. Whether it's against Western Force or against Brumbies or someone like that. I think it'd be the ideal place for him to play. Because I think he would make a Test 23, but he could definitely be part of the midweek squad.
What's your take on him, Caolan?
I probably shouldn't say. I'm not the biggest Jamie Ritchie fan. Some of that again is probably because when I watch Jamie Ritchie in Scotland, they often get bullied, or with Edinburgh or whatever. So there's probably a little bit of bias. The fact that he's more of a lighter flanker as well. To his credit, I absolutely understand Ben's points that as a leader, as a midweek man, as an out and out blindside, he could well travel. But I have to stick to my guns insofar as if I'm picking the squad and if I know Andy Farrell, I think there's a very good chance we see a third lock at 6. And I think that midweek spot is more likely to be a Jack Morgan or Rory Darge or Tom Curry shootout. That's just the way I'm leaning at the moment, personally. But tough to call. I think ultimately, look, we could start every conversation with this, every show with this, and we'd only be 5 minutes. Just like, well, we'll see how injuries are when the time comes around. But it's so tough to call, and I would have Jamie Ritchie on the outside looking in. Unfortunately for him, because I do think, again, to go back to that heft conversation, to go back to the fact that there's just so many quality open sides, who I think you can't compare players across positions, but If I was, I would probably have Morgan and Darge ahead of Richie and Van der Fleer and Curry. So it's a tough one. But I absolutely do agree with Ben's points about wanting, midweek leaders to be there. Now, I could very easily stand up here and say, well, Peter Manny was top tackler in an 80-minute performance where he also had like 8 carries and 5 line-out wins. But look, he is a former Test captain as well. But look, James Ritchie would absolutely be deserving if he does get picked. But it would be remiss of me not to throw in the fact that Peter Manny is a Test captain.
I guess the other thing is it depends on where your club is at the end of the season. Like as an Edinburgh fan, whether we finish top 8 or not is anyone's guess. And his season could be over by mid-May, late May. After depends on also what happens in the Challenge Cup after we play the Lions. But again, do you want people that are playing towards the end of the season and playing in those real sort of pivotal games in knockout rugby, or do you want people that are rested and have got 4 to 6 weeks off before that first test against Argentina at the Aviva? I don't know. It depends on what Farrell wants from people. And also there's the injuries to consider. There's always going to be in a squad of that size 3 or 4 big names that drop out. We see it every single time. 3 or 4 people, whether it's Stuart Hogg when he went down there now, so that's horrible eye injury when he got knocked with Conor Murray, or whether it's other players like the most recent, and then when I think did Gallen have to raid the Scottish squad when they were in Australia to go to New Zealand in 2017, got Finn Russell, Greg Laidler, a few others. There was a huge injury crisis between I think the second and third test from memory. There's always going to be some big names that unfortunately miss out. It's just the nature of rugby. There are going to be people pick up injuries. It just depends on those positions and then who you've got. You're going to have a reserve list.
Open side is a very high attrition position, so I think that's what helps Debbie Ritchie for me. All right, well, we've reached the end of the show. Those were our contenders, our bolters, and our head-to-heads. I'm sure everyone's got extremely strong opinions about everything that we've said.
So slag us off if you want to.
Yeah, and share. Make sure you share lots of links with friends to say, look at these idiots, and then they click on the link, and then they watch.
Especially South African fans, because I mentioned the fact that Antoine Dupont is world class.
Yeah, I fully believe what I said about that, by the way. So if you have enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you've been watching this long, you clearly did, so please do. And we shall be back, not next week with Pick of the Pride, the week after when the Six Nations is back. Sorry that we missed last week in terms of URC, just life got in the way for too many of us. We fully wanted to come and do a URC pod, we just didn't get to. Shout out to the Bulls for their win over the Lions yesterday. And just leaves me to say, enjoy the rugby, and I hope everybody's team wins. Cheers.
Right.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.